why even make art after something like this happened? We thought about it, and we saw that everyone around us was volunteering and helping families who were moved away from their home. And for me and my writing partner, Perry, we wrote the show together. We thought that if something good can come of it, we have to do this.
Welcome to What Came After. I'm your host, Manya Marcus. On What Came After, we'll take a look at the many ways people's lives have changed since the brutal massacre in Israel on October 7th, 2023. We'll be speaking to people around the world to learn how this profound moment in Jewish and global history continues to shift, shape, and change them. To learn more, please visit us at whatcameafter.com. Hi, this is Manya Marcus, and this is being recorded on March 15th, 2026. The episode you're about to hear with award-winning screenwriter Eden Gurion is being published while the war with the Iranian regime rages on. I asked Eden if we could begin his episode with a personal update on how he's doing these days. From there, we go straight into this conversation where we explore his recent work, the many faces of grief, and the role art can play in the midst of tragedy and upheaval. Thanks so much. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi, welcome to The War, the sequel to the last one and the prequel to the next. And how am I doing in the middle of this? Not great. I'm just one of those weird people who don't thrive during a war. Yesterday, the pre-alarm caught me right in the middle of giving my two little girls a bath. 1 second, they're laughing and splashing each other and me. And the next, I'm pulling them out, knowing I only have a few seconds to dry them off, get them dressed, and run to the shelter. It wasn't fun. It didn't smell like victory. It smelled like fear. But it also smelled like love. Mostly love. Because in those moments, nothing else in the world exists. Every other thought you had just disappears. Everything you thought was important just fades away. For a few brief, distilled moments, it's crystal clear who you are and why you're in this world, to protect your kids. And nothing else exists but love. And it's amazing. And it's devastating. That's pretty much all I can tell you about how I'm doing right now.
Okay, it is November 30th, 2025, and I'm really honored to be seated here with Eden Gurion. Eden, I don't want to introduce you. I would love for you to introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, where we are, and what it is that you do.
Hi, I'm Eden. I'm a screenwriter. I write television show in Israel. We are now in Tel Aviv, in my home in East Tel Aviv, in the Yad Eliyahu neighborhood.
Okay. The reason that we came together is because we have a mutual friend who was in film school with you. She now is an author and a social worker. But when I was telling Sarit that I was interested in talking to people about all the interesting directions that their lives have taken since October 7th, she suggested that I speak to you about your newest work. In English, it's called Remnants, and I would love for you to tell us what is it called in Hebrew, and what can you tell us about the show itself?
In Hebrew, it's called Hadvarim She'alchu Le'ibud. It means the things that got lost. And it's a show about grief and a show about mourning and loss. And it's a show about a girl whose older sister was murdered in the Nova Music Festival massacre on October 7th. And now it's the first Memorial Day in Israel. And she's still angry at the whole world. For her, every day is October 7th. She cannot let go of October 7th. And she's seeing how the memory of her sister is becoming something national. It's not for her anymore. She thinks that everyone is trying to mark it off and move on. And she doesn't want to move on. She doesn't know how anyone can move on after October 7th. The world was broken. How can you keep on with a broken world?
So I think it's really interesting that you're emphasizing the fact that she's struggling with other people taking ownership of her story and her grief. Her name is Rona. There's another protagonist in the story, a boy. They're both teenagers, right? His name is Oren. They're in high school together, and this sort of initial premise is that they have been asked to contribute some kind of speech to the Memorial Day event at their school. And Memorial Day here is Yom HaZikaron, is that right?
Yes, it's actually not a Memorial Day for October 7th, it's the Yom HaZikaron, the Memorial Day for all the soldiers who died in all the Israeli wars and all the people who were murdered in all the terrorist acts in Israel. And this was actually the first Memorial Day to happen after October 7th. This was before the 1-year memorial of October 7th. This show aired 7 months after October 7th. The making of it was very, very fast. It was very fresh. The wound was still very much open. Like, I think it's still open today.
When the film aired, had Yom HaZikaron already happened in Israel, or did it come out around the same time?
We edited it into a film later. It started as a 3-episode show, and we always knew this show was supposed to air on the first Memorial Day. It was made for Memorial Day, and it aired on Memorial Day.
How did that feel once it came out and there was a real, not a fictional Memorial Day happening, and then the way that you had envisioned Memorial Day, how that would feel as a writer 7 months in advance? Was there a contrast? Did it feel very synchronous? What was the experience for you?
We know how Memorial Day usually is in Israel. All people in Israel know there's a siren and everyone stops. And if you're in a car, you stop and you go out. All of life just stops for 1 minute and then the whole day is dedicated to it. But this was something completely different. This was something we had not seen before. This was something we were not ready for. So we tried to think, how will it look? What will happen? Will it look different? Will people say, no, we have to do it the same? And I think what happened in reality was a mix of both things. We thought it would be more different, but the rituals have a way of taking over. You know how to do something and you apply it to everything, even things that don't really need it applying to.
One of the issues in the show is really that there is a principal who's kind of in charge of this ceremony, this local ceremony, and she's being very rigid, right? Rona has an idea about how she wants to memorialize her sister, and it does not fit with the principal's vision. Did you feel that way, that people were being rigid about how they wanted to observe Memorial Day? Or are you saying that you felt it was natural, that the usual rituals absorbed the new meaning?
The show was actually conceived before October 7th. It was a show about Memorial Day in Israel. And we thought, how does Memorial Day works? How does remembering works? How does grief works? How do you talk to teenagers about grief? And we just started to work on the show, and then October 7th happened. And Khan came to us and said, okay, this needs to be about October 7th. This was a week after. And we said, no. How can we do this? We're still in the middle of this. What do you want to say about something that is happening now? How do you take the freedom to do such a thing? Can art describe such a thing? Why even make art after something like this happened? We thought about it, and we thought about it, and we saw that everyone around us was volunteering and helping families who were moved away from their home. And for me and my writing partner, Perry, we wrote the show together. We thought that if something good can come of it, we have to do this. So this is what we did.
It seems like other projects that you've worked on really try to understand like what it is to be Israeli. Memorial Day, you are already thinking about what does it mean in Israel to have this Memorial Day, and you've done a series prior about the Palmach. But is it generally important to you in your work to really think about what is essentially Israeli and how to communicate that?
Yes, I think it's interesting to me. Maybe because my father was a history teacher. He taught in high school the history of Israel. And I think it's very important for young people to know what happened, how we all came to be, what it means to be an Israeli, what it means to be Jewish. And when I worked on the show called Palmach, it's a show that is set in 1946, 2 years before the establishment of Israel. It was the time that the British Empire ruled here in Israel, that was called Palestine, and Jews were not allowed to come to Israel. The show takes place a year after World War ended. And the Palmach was an organization that took charge of it and tried to get those people in, and they tried to fight the British, and they tried to give the Jews a country here, and they succeeded in doing so. And the show was about teenagers who enlist in the Palmach and try to do that. And my main characters are brothers and sisters who come from Holland, and they are Holocaust survivors.
They come from Holland?
Yes, we did there also with grief and with loss, but that wasn't the main thing of the show. It was a very fun show. It was fun to write, and it talked about very important things.
You would not describe Remnants as a fun show?
No. We actually tried to insert some humor in it. We think that there's humor in everything, but no, it's a very sad show. We were very sad. And everything that happened was around us was so devastating. At some point we said, hey, at least we don't have to write a comedy.
I've heard people say writing comedy in general can be harder than writing drama.
Yes, I respect that.
So one thing that I want to make sure listeners understand is that your work, at least the Palmach and Remnants, is about teenagers, and it's geared to teenagers. What is it that compels you about creating work for young people?
It's interesting. I've thought about it. I didn't go to film school to create for young people. No one in their 20s.
You are the young people when you're in your 20s.
No, you're young, but you're saying, oh, I'm not young anymore. I don't want to be a teenager.
You don't realize.
Yeah, I'm 22 now. I'm an adult. And in Israel, you're 22 when you go to film school because you go to the army before that. I stumbled into it. I'm very good at it, and I have a lot of things to say. And I think that young people listen to what you have to say more than so the adults. Something with us when we grow up just dries up. We don't want to listen anymore. We think we know things. And when you're young, you are more open to changing your minds, to say, hey, maybe I don't know this. Maybe, hey, that's surprising. I'll think about this.
Can I use that lens of kind of the difference between young people's openness to their minds changing and sort of this older approach of I'm already formed? Let's use that as a lens to talk a little bit about the characters in the show, if that's okay. Esti is the name of the principal.
She's in charge of the ceremony.
Oren and Rona call her Esti. Is that typical? We would never call our teachers by their first names. Is that how it is in Israel?
Yes. Well, most places in Israel, you call the teacher by their first name.
Okay. And one thing that I want to say, at least about Rona, is that she's a very believable character, but that means to me that she's not always a very likable character. So just to give a little bit of background, Rona's sister has been killed at the Nova Festival, and they did not have a great relationship. Her older sister kind of sees Rona as a pest. She wants to get her out of her life a little bit. She wants to move out of the house. Her sister reminds her that she's not finished leaving the house yet. And there's this scene where she finally agrees to let Rona come with her to one of her concerts, right? And Rona makes a suggestion about a lyric change. And her older sister, whose name is? Daniela, says no. And then I think it's only after she dies, right, that Rona realizes that, she's been kicked out of this event. They had a big fight, but actually Daniela did change the lyrics. So in the memorial ceremony, Rona would like to play Daniela's song. But as she's navigating this, and older people are telling her, that's not how we do it. You're going to upset people. To me, what's not likable about her is that she can't take in that other people are experiencing this in another way. And she's a teenager, so this is the limit of her view. I think my question is, what's it like as a writer to write a character who, in order to be believable, has to not be likable all the time?
That's a very good question. We wrestled with that question. There were times when we thought that Rona is not likable enough, and we decided that it's okay. Rona is very angry. She's very hurt. She doesn't try to be likable. And we thought that maybe we need to be more like Rona. We need to stop caring if our audience likes Rona. This is who she is. This is how she acts. We need to be true to that character and not think about how we can sugarcoat her grief.
People don't realize it because it's not always portrayed in film, but grief makes somebody sometimes their ugliest self.
Grief, it can bring the good in you, it can bring the bad in you. It's very personal for everyone. Everyone grieves differently. And it can make you very absorbed in yourself, in your grief, and rightfully so. Something this devastating happened to you. You don't care if you hurt other people's feelings. It's just feelings.
Mm-hmm.
What happened to me is so much worse than me hurting your feelings. What are you even talking about? I don't care about your feelings.
This is the position of Rona. And then there's this boy, Oren. I asked you if their names were spelled backwards, and you explained that there is kind of a relationship between the R and the N. Tell me about the relationship, and also explain a little bit about where Oren is in his journey with grief, what his story is.
Oren is someone whose grief is more traditional. The Israeli way of Memorial Day. His father, in this case, died in battle. So he's a hero in comparison to Rona's sister, who was murdered in a not heroic way. And he tries to be the poster boy for grief. He tries to do everything right. He believes in all the ceremonies. He believes the way everyone taught him how grief should be, because he was very young when it happened. This helps him deal with everything, and he became so used to it, he doesn't even think about his personal grief. Where Rona always says, I don't care about your feelings, all he cares about is other people's feelings. He said, how will my mom feel? How will everybody feel if I said something that is a little out of the line, a little out of the usual thing they know and love to hear on Memorial Day?
I don't know if you feel this way, but it seemed to me that because he's had so much more time than Rona, he understands something about the performance of grief as opposed to the raw experience. And is that why you inverted their names a little bit? Like she's way on one side of it and he's really quite on the other. Is that part of the name similarity?
It's two sides of the same coin. It's grief and how you view grief, but they're both not really where they want to be, but not where they need to be.
Where do you imagine that Oren needs to go? Where do you think that he should be trying to get to?
Always tries to please others. He runs away from his feelings. He runs away from the truth. He runs away from what he's feeling. He thinks that it will make him weaker, that people will not like him. Maybe he himself will like himself less. And Rona is the opposite. She said, everything is me, everything is about me, everything, it's only how I feel. And Rona has parents, her parents are grieving also. And she doesn't, in her quest to find the right way to share her grief with everyone, she misses the point that her parents are grieving the same way that she is grieving. And she needs to see that other people are hurting too.
You're Israeli. You are living through this surreal time. Are these dynamics, where people's grief within families conflict with each other? There are these battles. It's not so harmonious when people are grieving together. Is it something that you see in the lives of your friends or your own family?
We did a lot of research for the show. We talked to many brothers and sisters of people who died in the army and later in October 7th. And a discussion of whether we should talk to those people, because I said no, because maybe talking to them will make it worse. I don't want to be responsible for that. What we do is just art. It's not worth making something worse for them.
But you decided that you would. How did you become persuaded that you would talk to people?
There were a lot of people who wanted to talk. They really looked for someone who would listen to them. Families wanted to tell those stories, and it's almost like they found us, and we listened, and there are things that are not discussed, but the difference between the grief of someone, a soldier who came and tried to rescue people on October 7th and died, and someone who was just an old person who was taken off the tourist bus and shot to death by terrorists, and just, what is it? His death has meaning. What is the meaning of it? It's hard to find meaning in this kind of death and different ways of approaching it.
Did you see that distinction between people talking about those that they lost at Nova versus those that they lost in combat?
It's between soldiers and civilians. The difference between dying in combat and being murdered. Not always, sometimes there is no difference. It's the same thing, but families of soldiers sometimes find comfort in knowing that He died for the country, he died for the people of Israel, he died trying to rescue people. So when there's no meaning you can find, when it's just brutal murder, it's sometimes harder.
The show has done really well. The one thing that I want to ask about the awards and the good reception is that we have been hearing and seeing how Israeli art and artists have really been cast out of the kind of international stage. So I was really surprised when our mutual friend shared that Remnants had won these awards and was doing well internationally. What can you say about being an Israeli artist at this time and how the show has been received?
Yes, we won the Rocky Awards. We were up against some very good and big shows. We were up against shows of the BBC and from Germany, and we won the Chelsea Film Festival in New York. And I think when people see the show, when it gets into a festival or the movie version, it resonates with people. Grief is not just an Israeli thing. It's a human thing. Even grief about losing someone in murder, losing someone in war. There are so many places in the world that are dealing with this, and we're saying something that is universal, not just about Israel.
But this is what's been so awful, really, is that you're mentioning it's not just an Israeli experience, loss, war, grief, trauma. It's an international phenomenon. But there's been so much reaction from the world that dehumanizes this place, these people, that it's been sort of strange and eerie that there's been no ability to see the connections between the trauma here and the trauma elsewhere. And the festivals that you're describing are not Jewish film festivals. These are festivals for everyone. Were you surprised when you won?
Yes, I was. I was very surprised because I know how hard it is for Israeli art to win something, to participate in something around the world. People are boycotting us. So it was very, very surprising. I was very happy and very surprised. I'm not that surprised that we're being boycotted because people love looking at the world in the way of a story. I tell stories and people need bad guys and good guys, and it's hard to focus on something that's complicated and in shades of gray. I look at the story of Russia versus Ukraine, and I'm saying, well, I have the bad guys are the Russians, and the good guys are the Ukrainians, and that's okay with me. I don't dig deeper. Sometimes, and people, they don't do it because they're mean or they're evil. They're good people. They just used to seeing the world like that in stories, and someone give them a nice story that fits well into what they know about good and bad. And they think we're the bad guys and they're the good guys, and that's all they need to know.
There's something about that I want to bring back to the story, which is that Rona is not performing grief in a pleasant or likable way. She's not a good guy. I mean, she's complicated. She's all over the place. Oren is trying to be a good guy, but it's kind of tearing him up, I think, a little bit. And then you have this Esty, this teacher, and she really seems like, okay, that's the bad guy in the story. At least the first 3 episodes, I thought, well, she's kind of a jerk. You know, she doesn't get them at all. And then it turns out, of course, that she's had a very profound loss herself and that she really relates with Rona. I want people to see this, so I won't share everything. When you work on film and television for teenagers, do they respond well when you complicate who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, when you keep twisting the dial around and around?
It's tricky. Sometimes they do. Sometimes when you turn the dial too much up, when it's not a clear bad guy, good guy situation, they don't react well. Because teenagers are like everyone around us. We love the good cowboy versus bad cowboy story. Everything that's more complicated than that needs more of our attention, more of our focus, it tends to be dividing, but it's not a reason not to do it. You want an audience to see you. You want people to love your show. You want people to love what you do, but you want to tell the truth. And as an artist, you need to tell the truth. And the truth is not always nice. I think in everything I do, everyone is a good guy. Everyone. We all strive to do good. We all think we're right. We all think what we do is the right thing to do. And if there's a bad guy, it's never us. It's always someone else.
I want to ask you how people have responded to the film here.
Yes, they saw it and they were very moved. They were very passionate about what we did. And it's so important to them to have someone remember what happened, the person they lost. And because so many people died on that day. And it was just, how can you remember one person when 1,000 people died in one day? It got lost. That's the things that got lost, הדברים שהלכו לאיבוד. All the things that you fed for this person, all the things that he wanted to be, that she wanted to be. Where is all this gone when someone dies? What happens to everything he wanted to do? What happens to everything? Everything just stops.
How do you think the show answers that question? What does happen to those things?
I think that's why we have two views. We have Oren's view and we have Rona's view, and they're both valid and legitimate. You can say that nothing is lost and love remains, and you can say that everything was lost. And it's not my place to say to someone what is the right way to grieve. I can only show you different ways and have you choose.
So I would say that the show complicates the whole meaning of grief by showing not just Rona and Oren, but also Esti, and a little bit of Rona's parents, and also Oren's mother. There are many different layers and looks into grief, and that makes it complicated. But one of the things that we hear, at least in diaspora constantly when we're talking about Israel, is resilience, resilience, resilience. And I think the show complicates the whole notion of resilience a little bit.
Well, resilience is very important. You have to move on. Bad things happen all the time. Terrorist attacks happen all the time. Wars happen. It all goes back to the Holocaust. So the Holocaust happens and you had to be resilient and you have to move on. And moving on and being resilient is very important and is the right thing to do as a people, but maybe not as an individual. As an individual, the need to be resilient and to move on is crushing. You can't really do that. Not everyone can do that. Not everyone should do that. And that is what the show about, the difference between being resilient as a people and being resilient as a person.
That's absolutely right. The tension between the collective and the individual is exactly what Rona is kind of acting out. And you can sort of see that her parents are not sure which way to go with this. Can they get swept up in the collective and try to heal from synergy, right? Or should they stay behind, quote unquote? I want to ask about the last scene. The last scene marks the very rapid transition, I think, from Memorial Day to Independence Day, Yom HaZikaron to Yom HaAtzmaut. I've never been here for that. Does it really happen that, like, as soon as the sun goes down on Memorial Day, the fireworks start?
It happens exactly like this. It's so weird. It's so hard for the grieving families that, yes, the moment the Memorial Day ends, Independence Day starts. And you have the fireworks. And you go from being the saddest day of the year and now you have to be happy. Okay, it's over. Now be happy. People can't do that. People who lost someone can't do that. People suggest in Israel, okay, let's divide those days. Why does Memorial Day have to be so near Independence Day? The answer is because we need to remember that is why we have Independence Day. We cannot be happy unless we remember what we've lost.
Does any of this have a personal resonance for you? I mean, I don't know where you were on October 7th or if anything very personal happened for you. I'm just curious about your own personal process through all of this.
I did not lose anyone from my family on October 7th. I did lose my father in the army. He was in reserves. But I think we all deal with grief when someone we know dies. It doesn't really have to be in those circumstances. It doesn't have to be in the army. It doesn't have to be by murder. It doesn't have to be someone we know can die in a car crash, and it would be just as devastating.
On October 7th, how soon did you start thinking about making art? I mean, you're saying that somebody approached you a week after and you thought this is too soon. But did you think at all about making art in the days after October 7th? Or?
No, not at all. As an artist, I questioned everything I do. I said, what can art do now? What is the meaning of art? What is art for? It's not important. It's not something that makes a difference. It's not something that I care about. But then when I was approached to do the show about October 7th, I said, okay, how can art be relevant to anything? But then I saw Israeli artists who did react to October 7th. Really, really fast, days after, and it was painters. I saw those paintings that were done so fast, and there's a reaction from that is something that is burning within you to do it. And I said, okay, maybe art can do those things. Maybe art does matter. Maybe I can do this. And I did it because they did it, because art has a place in this world. Still has a place in this world.
Eden, I want to thank you so much for sitting with me. This has been a really interesting and important conversation, and I hope that everyone who hears this has an opportunity to see what we will call Remnants.
I want to thank the Khan Broadcasting, and I want to thank Paramount Ananei Studios, who did the show in Israel. And the show is called Remnants. In Israel, it's called הדברים שהלכו לאיבוד. And I hope many people see it, and you can feel whatever you want about the show. It doesn't tell you how to grieve, and you can think we're totally wrong, and that's okay.
Absolutely. Is there going to be an opportunity for American audiences to see this at some point in the near future?
I hope there will be. I don't know if there is now, but I hope there will.
Okay. And when there is, let us know. We'll put it on our website.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate, review, and subscribe to What Came After wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us online at whatcameafter.com.
זה לא מרגש אותי, איבדתי את הטעם. אני צריכה עכשיו להשתחרר, אתה חוזר על 4